Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Drive Pink Dialogue. It is time to throw out everything you thought you knew about Inter Miami's offseason. We're going back to step one and reimagining what Inter Miami's plans and team will look like for 2026. Because last night we got huge news. Inter Miami going in on Germán Berterame, the Liga MX Monterrey striker, who is from Argentina, and this will be their biggest signing of the year. He will occupy a third DP spot, and this is their guy, Saur. How you feeling?
I was so confident Inter Miami was going to go with three DPs, well, two DPs and four U22s, and now everything's just completely changed. We were convincing ourselves that Inter Miami is only going to do big business in the summer, and they're going to set themselves up with as much excitement and as many good quality players for the first half of the season to win the CONCACAF Champions Cup and then go out and absolutely blow the window in the summer. Looks like they've just decided to expedite that. And now we're getting this big name striker from a solid team in Mexico. And it just completely changes the way I was thinking about how this team is structured, what we're going to be able to do moving forward, how Inter Miami might play. There's just so many interesting, fun questions, but very excited. Love the ambition from the club. And damn, what a way to start a Saturday morning.
Yeah, this is like revolutionary, I think, in how we were thinking about the 2026 season, because even though at the beginning of the offseason we thought, okay, they wanted DP number 9 to sort of push this project forward and into the new phase of the Messi era, and you're kind of moving on from Suarez and Jordi Alba and Sergio Busquets, and you want to play a more athletic style that maybe we got a little bit of a hint of in the playoff run. That's not really how this offseason went. They focused on ensuring the defense was stronger. They were bringing back a lot of the pieces. They re-signed Suarez. They re-signed Tadeo Allende. They were trying to bring back Baltasar Rodriguez. Like, it was more or less, let's fix the backside, replace the players that are leaving, and kind of run it back. And then here we are. Last night, total bombshell. No one saw this coming. And so I think we were expecting, okay, they're going to go with the 2DP, 4U22, load up on athletic young players, and maybe ride out with Suarez for the next 6 months. And if he's taken an even further step back, you can always go to the Messi as a false 9. Maybe Tadeo Allende can play some minutes there. Like, they were going to piece it together in a very similar way they had last season. Piece it together is the wrong phrase. I mean, they obviously excelled last year. But it was going to look more or less similar to last season. Whether it was the end of the regular season or that very last playoff run, you had the pieces in place to do either of those things. And now they've changed everything by going out, not official, not a done deal, although it seemingly is trending that way, and everyone seems to think this is going to happen, to go get that big number 9 striker. $15 million. Here's the details of the deal. He has a release clause in the $15 million range. Inter Miami is seemingly going to activate it. There is some last-minute details to work out between Monterrey and, it seems like, Berterame, who seemingly wants to come. The point of me saying that is he has a release clause that Inter Miami can just activate. They don't have to negotiate for 3 weeks with Monterrey. And if Berterame wants to come, they can kind of close that deal whenever they want. Now, is Monterrey going to try and stall to get him to sign a new contract? Maybe that's something they're going to spend today trying to figure out. Maybe there's something to do with the sell-on clause from his previous club that they have to figure out the details for. Maybe that's the only thing that's holding this deal up. But assuming everything progresses like we expect it to progress, Inter Miami is about to get their big number 9 DP, Germán Berterame.
This is exciting for so many different reasons. I know a lot of people in the chat, a lot of people online are excited about the quality of the player, what he brings to the team. He seems to be a solid, quintessential number 9 that adds something that this team is lacking in that position. With all respect to Luis Suarez, he's no longer that athletic, running in behind, tall, hefty striker. I think there's an element of that needs to be added to it. It's about how the team is actually going to play, what the team is going to look like with Berterame leading the line, what it means for the depth of the team, what does it mean for the structure of the team, how is the formation going to look like. I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that Inter Miami wants to be deep for the CONCACAF Champions Cup. It adds a value to, okay, we might not just need to rely on Luis Suarez. We're also going to use Berterame to get our goal scoring numbers up. How is he going to play alongside Messi? There's just so much that we can talk about, that we can discuss. But just in terms of the deal itself, 15 million is a lot of money to make him a DP player, to bring in a seemingly, I don't want to say unknown player. Of course, he's a big brand in the CONCACAF, plays for Monterrey, one of the biggest teams in the Confederation. But we would have expected Inter Miami to bring in a DP from the European giants, someone like an RDP. So Inter Miami to change a model and bring in somebody that's from within the region itself, and seemingly throwing a curveball at us by bringing in someone that we didn't expect would be. He's not linked to Messi in any direct way. He's not an Argentinian. He hasn't played with
He
Messi.
is Argentinian.
Yes, he's Argentinian. He hasn't played with Messi at the at the national level. He's not seemingly friends with Messi. So we're moving away from that model, and in itself, I think that is a positive for me. The fact that we're doing this, we're making this deal work, is not just about surrounding Messi with the best and his most friendly faces. It's about bringing in somebody who is going to add quality to this team and who Inter Miami thinks is going to genuinely help us win the cup. For me, that itself speaks volumes. Again, spending 15 million on this player, for some could feel steep. Making him a DP for some could feel steep, but I have a feeling it's going to definitely come to fruition, and he's going to make himself worth the value.
Yeah. Just as I should say this, Inter Miami opened training today, and Jorge Mas went and spoke with the media, and they asked him a lot of questions, and there's a lot of quotes coming out. We spent our morning preparing to talk about Germán Berterame, so we saw a couple of them. We watched a couple of the quick highlight videos, but we have not had a chance to fully digest some of the things that Jorge Mas has said. So in this episode, we're going to talk about Berterame, and we may mention some things about what he said today, but we're not going to talk about most of it. So I see a lot of people talking about Baltasar or Tadeo Allende or Talasco Segovia. It's mostly going to be about Germán Berterame, and I just want to clarify that next episode we'll go back and have a chance to really dive into everything he said and figure out how it all works, and maybe we'll have more concrete information on if this deal is going to happen, which we do expect at this point. Okay, let's get into him as a player, and let's start with the positives. This guy's coming in to be the DP number 9, and Inter Miami hasn't had a DP number 9 since Gonzalo Higuain. Like, this has not been the way this team has been constructed, certainly not in the Messi era, because Luis Suarez, who is that sort of superstar level type player with the big name and the production, especially in his first season, was on a TAM deal and took the pay cut to come to Inter Miami. So this is Inter Miami making a big move, and they clearly like him. And guess what? He is really good at putting the ball in the back of the net, which feels like, if you have Lionel Messi creating opportunities for you, is a really nice skill set to have.
He has a whip of a right foot. He scored against Inter Miami in the CONCACAF Champions Cup when Drake Callender was in goal, when Tata Martino was still our coach. I don't know how many of you remember that, but that was a brilliant goal. He shimmied the ball to the right, took a wonderful shot from outside the box, and that's just that wasn't a fluke. He does that on a regular basis. He can score from both feet. He can score from outside the box. He is a poacher. He can be he can head the ball really well. A lot of his goals come from heading opportunities. He positions himself really well, comes into the box late when needs to. He is, again, a quintessential poacher striker who can do a lot of different things really well. And when you have the likes of Silvetti, Allende, Messi sitting in behind you, Rodrigo de Paul feeding the ball to you, I think he's going to actually flourish in goal scoring terms. This is a out and out goal scorer for me. That's what he does best when it comes to being a striker. A lot of people I heard talked about him bringing athleticism, pressing. All of that is secondary. I think his first trait is how good of a goal scorer he is. Now, some would actually argue this team doesn't need that many goal scorers because we spread across our goals across the board. But I'm interested to see how we finally play with a target man. Luis Suarez wasn't actually a quintessential target man. He would come, help with the build up, he would get involved in the pass and go, and then eventually get the ball into the box and score. This is a player a la Campana, right? I'm not talking about the same quality. I'm not talking about the same talent level. I'm talking about how he's that one person in the box that you would want to find. When someone like Ian Frey is on the right-hand side looking to put a ball in, who's he looking for? Berterame, because he's the tall, strong, heading striker that you have in the center. So,
well, he's not tall. I want to be clear about that. He's pretty short, actually. He's about 5'8".
Why does he look so tall in his highlight reels?
Well, he actually has a pretty good knack for finding the ball with his head, and he's a good.
He scores a lot of headed goals. Yeah.
Yeah. He is pretty good with the ball in the air, at least for his size. Similar to I think Lionel Messi, where he kind of just has a knack for getting his head on it with power and accuracy. But he is short. He's 5'8". But I think the thing that stands out when you watch him is he makes those last second darting runs to put himself in position to get a quality shot off, and then he finishes. And so in the box, he is everything you could want in a striker at this level, at a CONCACAF level. He makes great runs at the end. He's got great instincts for where the ball is going to wind up. And then when he shoots and he scores, and he can do it with his right foot, with his left foot, and as we just mentioned, in the air. So this is like the quintessential, and he can also score from outside the box. He's got powerful shots too. So this is a guy who just scores. I think that's sort of how you would put it. He's a striker that scores. The rest of his game, from a striking perspective, I think is not standout. He's not a creator. He's not going to get a ton of assists, but he's a striker and he scores a lot of goals, and I think that's something to be really positive about. He's also apparently pretty good defensively for a striker. Works hard, and I think gives a lot of effort. How do I put this? I think the difference is going to be so dramatic that I don't even know if it matters if he's elite or if he's just very good at it, or if he's, pretty good. It's going to be such a huge upgrade without the ball defensively that it's going to feel like he is an absolute superstar defensive striker, and in the press and working together collectively to help win balls high up the field, and also to help with the structure of a defense. He's going to feel like a superstar in that aspect, just because it's such a leap from where he is, or I'm sorry, what Inter Miami's gotten from that position over the last couple of years.
Yeah, he's 27. He's probably, as a striker, hitting his peak right now. I would have loved to see him play with Jordi Alba, because you mentioned spacing, and that's something that really stood out for me when I watched his highlights, is how well he positions himself in the box and just peels off the defender slightly and finds that little space that allows him to get to the ball first. Having Jordi Alba putting those balls into the box for him would have been fantastic. So I'd really like to see how the likes of Sergio Reguilon and Ian Frey and our wingers service Berterame when he's in the middle. But off the ball, I think anything is an upgrade at this point, right? Luis Suarez does some sort of pressing, but it's never that effective. And he's a different player. I don't want to criticize Luis Suarez while bigging up Berterame. I think it's
it's only to highlight how it's going to change.
Exactly. And I think that's an element that Inter Miami was moving towards regardless. And I think having this player as a number 9 for you just allows you to press from the front and, again, play on the front foot. Inter Miami, a lot of the times last season, would just sit back and absorb pressure, and that was never really their game. And when we changed as a team, the primary function was us playing on the front foot a lot more. This player allows you to do that. He's going to be the first line of defense. He's going to be the one pressing from the front. Combine that with someone like Silvetti on the left-hand side, Allende perhaps on the right-hand side, and you've got legs to press for days. It allows Messi to be a little bit more, I don't want to say lethargic, but lackadaisical, doesn't need to be involved in defending as much. And then you've added the likes of RDP, Ajala, Bright in the middle. I think the athleticism and physical peak of this team has definitely gone up a notch. And I won't be surprised if we see that from the first game itself.
Yeah, he's not super quick. I want to be clear about that.
And
Like
it's not
athletically,
about the
he's not a
quickness
freak,
though.
but it's an effort thing.
Is the physicality, the work rate,
Right.
just going for the press when you need to and just running for your ball, right?
Right. So I think if we're trying to compare it to players on the team, I think he's going to be pace wise somewhere between like a Baltasar and a Segovia.
Yeah.
Like it's solid, it's fine, it's everything you need, but it's not going to be burner rate. And so anyone expecting that probably is going to be disappointed. But what he does do is he runs for 90 minutes or however long he's on the field, and that is a key like element to this. Where even if he doesn't have the standout physical traits, he does make up for it with effort, and I think it's really important to mention. The other thing is he's from Argentina. Born in Argentina, he has eligibility for Mexico through his family and has played a couple games, a couple friendlies with the Mexican national team. So you might see him listed as a Mexican national team. He was born in Argentina. He's going to be very comfortable with the culture of this club. He's going to fit in with these players particularly well, and he will require an international roster slot. But for a DP, that is what it is. He has also played in every competition Inter Miami's going to dream of playing in. Obviously, plays in Liga MX, so he has a ton of experience. But in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, he's had good runs. In the Leagues Cup, he's had good runs in 2023. In the first Leagues Cup he played in, he had like 5 goals in 3 games, I think. Played in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Last year, the Club World Cup, Monterrey obviously went to the Club World Cup. Didn't score against River Plate or Inter Milan. And if I'm remembering correctly, that was we're going to bunker as hard as we can for Monterrey. And so it was kind of a no man's zone, or dead man's duty for the striker. But in their third game against Urara Red Diamonds, he scored a pair of goals, a brace against them in the third game, and then they advanced to the round of 16, and he scored against Dortmund in the round of 16. So in terms of experience, he's played high-level competition, high-level games, and every type of competition Inter Miami is going to want to be a part of. So from that perspective, I think you feel good about him coming in. He's 27. He's the prime age. He's already done everything that Inter Miami is going to ask him to do from a competition, travel. Obviously, he's played a bunch of MLS teams in the CONCACAF Champions Cup and in the Leagues Cup, so he's going to understand what the MLS is about more so than a player that's never done that before. Like, I think from all those perspectives, he checks a lot of boxes.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good cultural fit. I don't think he's going to have too much trouble adjusting to the physicality of the MLS either. He's going to be used to the environment, the players that he's around. I think he should fit in really well. And again, he is the mold of a player that Inter Miami would normally go for, someone from South America, well, Central America in this case, and someone who speaks Spanish, has that cultural affinity. I just didn't think we'd bring someone in from Mexico who'd be the DP, but I think it's a refreshing approach, and I hope he hits the ground running. He's got, well, if the deal gets done soon, he'll have the preseason with the team, and it'll be interesting to see how he also plays in shadows under Luis Suarez, because training with Luis Suarez, I think, is going to be a huge help to
That's an excellent point.
Berterame. Yeah,
I never really considered that, but if you are a age 27 striker and you're playing a lot of minutes and you're going to training and watching film with Luis Suarez, you might grow a level that maybe people wouldn't expect if you were going somewhere else.
And we all know Suarez is a bit of a bite to his game, no pun intended, and he may help.
That was absolutely intended.
He may help Berterame understand some of those elements of the game as well. And I'm really excited to see how Berterame actually grows into a perfect striker for this team, especially. I think there's a lot of positives to this move. I also think it shuts the door on a lot of things that we can maybe do in this winter window. So we will talk about that later. But just when it comes to the quality of the player, the talent that he brings, and how the team is going to set up with him, a lot of question marks still, but exciting, positive question marks in my eyes.
Okay, so overall, you're excited. You're excited about this move. Okay. Let's give some sober reflections on this as well, because I don't know if everyone saw this move last night or this morning and thought to themselves, this is a slam dunk. And so if that's what you felt as a listener, I think that's totally reasonable, and I don't think you should feel like you're the outlier for that. I've seen some people act like he's the best striker in CONCACAF, and I don't think that's the case. I think and I really tried to find this morning. I went looking for people trying to talk about who were their favorite or who are the best strikers in Liga MX. And while Berterame is one of the names that is frequently mentioned, there was certainly no sense that he was the best striker in Liga MX or like far and away the best striker in Liga MX. He's one of the better strikers in Liga MX. And when you look at his numbers, they're not ridiculous. He had 27 goals in 2025, which is a great number, and we've constantly said you can't have a bad season if you score 20 goals in reference to Tadeo Allende. But he also played a ton of minutes to get those goals, just under 4,000. It worked out to about 0.62 goals per 90, which is pretty good. I think if you're a striker and you're getting half a goal per game or a goal every other game, like that's pretty solid. You belong, and he was better than that over the course of 2025. But 0.62 is also less than Sam Surridge, Peter Musa, Brian White, Ty Baribo, Joseph Martinez actually outpaced him. I actually found 9 strikers in the MLS that had a higher goal per 90 ratio than Berterame. Now listen, Berterame will improve because he will have Lionel Messi giving him passes. Like, I don't think anyone has any doubt about that. But all these other guys didn't either. And it's probably not fair to compare him to Heung-min Son or Thomas Mueller as well. And so if you're a fan thinking, man, they're going to go get Robert Lewandowski or they're going to go get Antoine Griezmann, like I think it's fair to be a little surprised by this and think, okay, this guy is not that level of player. And just because he's a good Liga MX striker doesn't mean he's going to come in and dominate the league just because of his outstanding talent. And so I think being sober about that is fair. That said, there's two other MLS clubs that were willing to pay this guy's release clause over the last 18 months. Portland about 18 months ago, and Cincinnati about a year ago were interested and willing to pay his $15 million release clause, and ultimately he decided he didn't want to make that move. And so there's other MLS teams that think he's a good player. I don't want to. I do not want to make it seem like he's a bad player. It's just if you were sort of thinking they were going to go sign a world-class, World Cup winning type player like a Rodrigo de Paul or Sergio Busquets or someone like that, he's not that type of player. I think that's fair to say.
No, I think that's fair to say. One thing I will push back on is maybe comparing MLS strikers with a Liga MX striker might not be a direct translation, depends on the level of the league as well, and all those considerations. I think you make an excellent point that when a striker is playing behind Messi, in front of Messi, that just elevates them exponentially. We saw what happened with Allende. But I think you're right when you say the way to look at this is going to be a really good signing. This is going to be a great signing for the team itself. But as a player, I don't think he's going to be one of the best strikers in the league immediately.
Well, and he could be. Like, I don't want to...
He could be, yeah, absolutely. But that shouldn't be the expectation from him.
Yeah. I think, like, he's going to have Lionel Messi putting the ball into him. Could he score 40 goals next year? I think that's maybe not unrealistic. If he scored 27 with Monterrey, MLS defenders are slightly worse. Or not slightly. They are worse than Liga MX defenders. And he's going to have Lionel Messi putting the ball up to him. If he plays a similar number of minutes as he did last year, actually 40 goals doesn't... Like, you could see how the math makes... But you could see how the math could work there.
Can I ask you a simple question?
Go ahead.
How many goals would you need from Berterame next season for him to justify being the DP?
I was wanting to talk to you, but I wanted to ask you and get your opinion first. Now that you've put me on the spot, I think if he's healthy the whole year, it's a lot. It's like an unrealistic ask. It feels like.
Really?
30 goals.
I think anything over 25
goals
would actually make him a successful successful signing. 25 goals plus is, I think, a good level to be at. Because in Miami is going to score a lot of
Is
goals
that
this
is
season.
that all competitions?
No, just the MLS.
Yeah, I agree. Oh yeah, if he scores
Yeah, yeah,
25
yeah.
goals in the MLS,
Yeah.
definitely a success. But
But you also have to take into
he's also
account
not
one
coming for the
consideration,
MLS.
right? Yeah, he's coming for the CONCACAF Champions Cup. But I think we need to consider this aspect as well, right? For a striker to come into Miami team is slightly difficult because we score goals across our front line. It's not just going to be the striker who will be scoring all the goals. That being said,
Well,
Luis Suarez did manage to score 35 goals in his
no,
first season. So
he is going to be a goal scorer because he's not
yeah.
a creative player. He is going to be asked to be a goal
But
scorer.
how many of those times that the ball may be coming into him, but instead goes to Silvetti and he scores instead? Like, how many of those instances would you consider as well when you're counting his goals, right? Like, that's what I'm trying to get at. Maybe I'm not explaining it correctly, but I think Allende and Silvetti are also probably going to take away some of the goals that may be coming into or funneling through Berterame. But I'm just trying to find an
I changed
excuse.
my answer. It's
Okay.
not whether this is a success or not has nothing to do with how many goals he scores. It's whether Inter Miami wins the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Because here's my
Yeah,
honest
I
opinion.
think that's the right way to put it.
If they save if they save that DP spot until the summer, they could go get a better player.
Yeah.
That would probably be better long term for Inter Miami for the next 3 years. But if you wait until the summer, you don't get a DP for this CONCACAF Champions Cup run, which they are putting all their chips in on. And so, actually, I don't think he's going to score less than 20 goals this year. I think I could convince myself there's like a 35, 40 goal season in there for him if he kind of keeps the same pace he had been on. You're going up against slightly worse defenses in the league in MLS because MLS teams invest in their offense more, and you have Lionel Messi putting the ball into you. Like I could see 35 to 40 goals, but I also don't think any of that matters because the truth is he's coming in to win the CONCACAF Champions Cup.
If he scores that one goal in the CONCACAF Champions Cup final, I think that's going to be enough for him to be a success.
Kind of like Rodrigo de
RDP.
Paul.
Yeah.
He was okay last year. I mean, he was good. I don't think he was the best midfielder in the league while he was here, but then he gets the big moment in the big game, and now we haven't mentioned Rodrigo de Paul in any sort of negative way at all
capacity,
off season.
yeah.
So I actually think it just matters if he scores
Yeah.
2 or more goals in the CONCACAF Champions Cup final.
Honestly, I'm really excited for the signing because I think he could completely blow all expectations out of the water and be phenomenal. But even if he's not, that's fine. I think if he helps Inter Miami win the CONCACAF Champions Cup in any way, that in itself is going to be a big boost. I think there's a lot of upsides to this signing particularly, but I also think there's a bit of a downside, and you mentioned this. We could have waited. We could have waited until the summer to get a better DP striker, more suited to the long term. But I think if the expectation is right now we want to win the CONCACAF Champions Cup, if Inter Miami wants to go all chips in right now and wants to make sure we're prepared and wants to bring in a striker and they don't think Luis Suarez is sufficient to do that, then it's okay. Then I think this is a really good signing in that scenario.
Just a couple other things to mention while we're in our last 60 seconds of sort of being sober about this. He's Argentine national, or he grew up in Argentina, was not good enough to make the Argentine national team. He's actually not really good enough to make the Mexican national team too, which I think is a little bit more of a red flag if you're using your DP spot on him. Has played a couple friendly games, but has never played a competitive match for Mexico, and doesn't seem like he's going to be picked to go to the World Cup for Mexico this summer. So 27-year-old prime age striker not getting a Mexican call-up, I think is at least, when you're talking about a $15 million DP, pairing him up with Messi, something to consider. The other thing is, and this is maybe transitioning into a positive, at the beginning of 2024, Monterrey had him on the roster as their striker, and they went out and spent a lot of money on Brandon Vasquez from Cincinnati, who is different profile striker, but they brought Vasquez in to be their guy. So there was a point in time, almost 2 years ago now, that Monterrey had him on the roster, saw him, and said, we can do better. My impression is he's improved, and he beat out Vasquez, and eventually they had to move Vasquez on, and that he had his best year ever in 2025. So I don't mean to make that as like a negative, and there's been multiple MLS teams that have willing to go in to buy him. But those are, I guess, the other two things from his team. Once thought they could upgrade on him. I don't think they think that anymore, but they once thought that. And then the Mexican national team doesn't seem as a priority. I guess those are the only other two things that I think are concerns. But again, I think he could score 40 goals this year if he plays to the same level, really.
Yeah. No, I'm excited for this. I think he adds a bit of an unknown dimension. Like, he's not a world superstar by any means, but he's still a good player. And yeah, Kareem just took my words. He's no crazy superstar, but he's good. And I think in this Inter Miami team, he could be great.
I think that's a perfect way to put it, actually. He's a good player. He's a good player.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about how he fits into this team, because he's a goal scorer. And you were kind of touching on this a few minutes ago. When Allende scores goals instead of him, or Silvetti scores goals instead of him, should we not take that away from him? But the thing is, that's what he is. He's a goal scorer. He's not going to be a huge creator. He's going to be a guy that you ask to get in the box, and we're going to give the ball to Messi, and he's going to find you, and you finish. We're going to get it to Silvetti, and he's going to find you, and you're going to finish. And so, like, he is going to be judged on his goal scoring output. A couple assists, but he's not a creative sort of number 9/10 that's going to unlock his teammates in that way. So I actually think, like, the point is, go score 40 goals, and that's why we want you to be here. And again, I get that sounds ridiculous, so maybe I'll stop saying it. But, like, that's what they want from him. And then you put Messi on the ball, and you give him Silvetti down the left, Allende down the right, and Berterame down the center, and let me just do what I want to do if you're Lionel Messi.
He also gives you too many different dimensions to play with, right? Like, you could not play him, have him on the bench. You could play him, and you could play completely different formations without him. You could put two strikers up top in a 4-4-2 with Messi sitting behind them. Well, that doesn't work. But I do think there's elements of this that we haven't explored, right? Not just a 4-3-3, maybe a 4-2-3-1, maybe a 3 at the back, given that we have a bit of a opportunity to play that as well with a 3-4-3 maybe. How does it all work? I think there's just so many different flexible formations that we can use now that we have him as an option on this. Well, we will have him as an option in this squad. Very interesting to see how he fits. Maybe we can have a conversation about what you think the formation would be, what you would want it to look like, and where does Suarez fit, where does Allende fit, where does Berterame fit?
I think you bring him in to be the guy.
He has to be
number 9.
If he's a DP, he's not going to sit on the bench.
Right. And he he just played 4,000 minutes. He's not an injury-prone player.
No.
Ironically, I guess, and shout out to the Battered Herons for their guest last night. His one injury ever came on a turf field, so maybe that's something to keep an eye on this year. But an AstroTurf field. He's going to change the play style. I don't know if it changes the structure much, because I still think you can play him and Messi together in a 4-4-2 as your striker and second striker. I think you could play more of a 4-2-3-1, especially if you feel like the added emphasis you've put in defensive midfield and in your defense and in your goalkeeper will allow you to kind of just have more numbers forward, and you don't have to commit so many numbers defensively. So that's kind of what I see, but I think it's going to be Messi and Berterame as like a front two in some capacity. And maybe defensively, maybe it's Messi as the... Do you think there's any chance... Well, not that it'll matter that much, but it's Messi as the number 9 and Berterame as the number 10, and they kind of like interchange, but when it comes back to doing defensive work in the midfield, it's Berterame that's coming in as like more of that midfield number 10. Defensively, Messi stays up as sort of a lone striker out of possession. I could see that.
Maybe. I think that's complicating it a bit too much. I think the 4-2-3-1 is the most straightforward. You play 4 defenders, you play 2 midfielders with Rodrigo de Paul and David Ajala / Danik Bright. You have Messi play as your out-and-out number 10, Silvetti on the left-hand side, Allende on the right-hand side, and you've got Berterame up top / Suarez up top. That, I think, is the best way to make the most of this squad right now. 4-3-3, I highly doubt it because that would, I think, mean either putting Messi on the right hand side or playing him as a false striker. And I'm not sure if that's going to be the case. And then the 4-4-2, I think you're right as well, is the other formation that I think is most likely. So between the 4-2-3-1 and the 4-4-2 is what I expect Inter Miami to set up as, with Messi and Suarez or Messi slash Berterame up top.
Yeah. We just to mention it, I think Jorge Mas today mentioned that today Allende is a done deal and they expect him, and that's how we've been working under that impression. They obviously have Silvetti under contract. Baltasar may be a little tough to get over the line, and that Telasco Segovia is going to stay. So when you think about your front forward line, if it's a front two, you have Messi and Berterame as your top two. You kind of have Suarez as a guy who can maybe play for either one of them off the bench, like in a rotation aspect, right? Because obviously Messi and Suarez can play together, and we've seen Suarez can handle the creative duties when Messi's not there. So maybe that's all you need is a front, like three guys in that front two spots, and then Daniel Pinter or Tadeo Allende can fill in at the end of games, or if there's an injury crisis or whatever. I'm sorry, an alien abduction crisis or whatever. And then that allows you to stay with your 4-4-2 structure, or just have wide forwards with Tadeo Allende and Silvetti being, I think, the go-to starters. You probably still need another player that can play there, because I don't know if Santi Morales, especially if it's more of a sort of reserved 4-4-2, I'm not sure he can fit that role. David Ruiz maybe profiles as a guy that might be able to give you something there in rotation. But you lost Baltasar Rodriguez in that spot, and you lost Fafa Picault as a guy who could give you some minutes there. So I think maybe they would need to get another winger. Whereas if they play a 4-3-3 and Messi is considered one of your wingers, maybe you don't. Maybe you're just good along the front line.
My feeling is Daniel Pinter was that winger that we were looking to bring in. I think he's going to fill in worst case scenario if there's an alien abduction of all of our forwards. If there's a mass alien abduction, I think this is it in the forward line. It's going to be very hard to maneuver and do business anymore unless you actually move pieces out. And I think Inter Miami is going to probably do some business in the back line still. So for me, if you bring in Berterame, I doubt you bring in a out and out.
They need one more piece in either the front line or the midfield, depending on how you want to structure the team. Right? If you're going to play with three midfielders, you probably need another midfielder, and you don't need another attacker. If you're going to play with a sort of four-man midfield, if you're going to play with a four-man front line, you probably need another forward, and you're probably good in the midfield. So
I think we need to probably do this every episode, but can we just quickly talk about the midfield depth and the frontline depth, because I always get confused and I need to remember who we have. So Rodrigo de Paul in the middle, David Ayala. Can we not just call him Ayala? It's so much easier. Yannick Bright, David Ruiz, Telasco Segovia, 5, who can play in that midfield position, right?
Correct. And other guys that can be emergency options, Ian Frey, Total.
No, that's not.
I understand.
That I think is going to be the worst case scenario. I want to.
Right.
Anyone that we'll be comfortable playing there.
I'm talking about guys that emergency situation.
Yeah.
You still want a guy like that deep on your roster, and I think they have that too. So I guess.
Yeah. So we got 5. If we play a 4-3-3, you're using 3 of those 5, and you got 2 as backup. Can you play someone like Silvetti in the middle? Maybe. But I think you're right. If you play a 4-3-3, you probably need another midfielder. If you play a 4-4-2, then I think you're good. In the front line, you've got Silvetti, Segovia, we can say, on the left-hand side, Allende on the right, Messi on the right, and then Suarez and Berterame. That's 6. If you're playing a 3-man front line, I think you're good there. Right. If you're playing, I think we're fine in the forward line now.
I think if you're playing a 4-man line, right? 2 wide midfielders and 2 forward attacking players. I think you might need one more because you only have Segovia or Silvetti on the left side. And I'm not convinced Silvetti can actually play that defensive physical role if he has to. And then on the right side, all you have is Allende because you're not playing Messi out there.
So
You don't even have another option. I guess Silvetti is the other option, but it feels like those 2 wide positions, if you're going to play 4, Messi's not one of them. The 2 wide positions, you probably want 4 players, and you only have 3 right now in Segovia.
So it's interesting. Our front line is suited to a 4-3-3, and our midfield is suited to a 4-4-2. So the next signing that we make, basically in the attacking position, is going to tell us exactly what Inter Miami is going to play, right?
Maybe. Can I
That's
ask you
a very
question?
interesting place to
This
be.
just kind of off the top of my head, but do you think this was the plan 3 days ago?
I think the way Inter Miami's been operating, I would say yes, but also something tells me this may have been an opportunity that arose, and Inter Miami was like, let's just do it.
I don't want to get. You know what? We'll have that conversation another time. But I feel like actually the way they were operating is that they didn't want to do this, and then maybe
Something opened up.
or who knows what happened. But maybe we can conspiracize about that some other time.
And I think Kareem makes a good point that if you do need to sub out Allende or Silvetti, or if you are lacking numbers, you just change the formation. So we don't have to stick to the 4-4-2 or 4-3-3 or the 4-2-3-1. You can change formation. So maybe we do have sufficient number of players in all positions. Who knows?
Yeah, the other tough thing is you don't have a young player in the midfield that's sort of, can break through or is ready to break through in the midfield, at least as far as we can tell. Okay. Let's get into how this affects the rest of the roster because we've been operating under the assumption that they're going to go with the 2 DP 4 U22 setup, get some extra allocation money to make the whole thing work. And maybe that meant they could go sign another U22 player. We thought maybe Baltasar would be that guy because it seemed like where things were heading a couple days ago. Now they're going 3 DPs, which means they have too many U22 players already. I will remind you, the 4 U22s currently on the roster at Inter Miami are Telasco Segovia, Toto Aviles, Matteo Silvetti, and David Ajala, the new player they just bought from Portland. They have to move one of them either on or buy them down before the season starts. Now, maybe if anyone was confused about this, the deadline to get roster compliant is like the day before the season starts. So it's not like they have to be roster compliant throughout the offseason. It's not like they have to sell Aviles by tomorrow in order to buy Berterame. They just have to be compliant by the time the season starts. And as you get into the weeks leading up, the MLS is working with the teams to say, hey, listen, you need to be doing these things in order to get compliant. So you don't have to worry about getting compliant on January 17th. The point is you have to be compliant by the time games start. But in order to do that, they will have to move on a U22 piece. I have said this over and over. They could buy Telasco Segovia out of U22 status and keep him on the roster. And that could solve their problems today, honestly. We've also speculated that Toto Aviles might not be on the roster by the time the season starts. He takes up a U22 spot, and it doesn't feel like Javier Mascherano sees him as a guy he wants to invest a lot of time in developing. Maybe it's best for both Inter Miami and Toto Aviles to move on. So I think that's something to keep in mind. So let's just assume Aviles goes. The math works. From a roster compliance perspective, I still think it's, from a playing time perspective, a little intriguing to figure out. Like, we still have to figure out how it's all going to work. But we talked about our front line. You have seemingly 3 players to start 2 spots in Allende, Silvetti, and Telasco Segovia. Those feel like guys that all deserve to be starters. If you're playing a midfield 3, all of a sudden, and a front line of 3, you're talking about Messi and Berterame, who will be starters, and then Allende or Silvetti, 2 players for 1 spot. And I haven't even mentioned Luis Suarez, who might not play at all this year. I don't know. I mean, no player had a bigger 360 in my brain or 180 in the last 14 hours than Luis Suarez, because like I have been under the impression that he's going to start most games for Inter Miami this season, and now I'm not sure there's even a role for him on this team. If this
Do you
deal
think
goes
they
through,
jumped the gun with Suarez and bring him on that early in the transfer window?
I think that this Berterame deal is different than everything else. Like is a plan that's different than everything else they had done this offseason, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Which is why I asked you, when do they think they wanted to do this?
I think Inter Miami is such an intriguing club, man. I love this club. It's so fun. They just keep throwing curveballs at us, making us figure things out. And then it's the most simple answer. It's actually that. It's the most simple answer. Suarez is going to be a backup play in the MLS, CONCACAF Champions Cup. Berterame is going to get the minutes, and that's about it. That's probably what's going to happen.
Well, I don't think he's going to play in the MLS. I think Berterame is going to come in and play every game.
Even CONCACAF MLS?
He played 4,000 minutes last year. No problem.
Interesting.
And he's a prime player.
Yeah, he is a prime player.
And I do want to keep saying this. A, Javier Mascherano does not rotate. And B, which is why
Javier Mascherano does not rotate.
Well, I think that's what makes this so interesting is when you have 2 players for 1 spot or 3 players for 2 spots, and then you have a coach that doesn't really rotate particularly. I'm not sure if the right word is often or well, but rotation has not been, and keeping everyone sort of engaged and satisfied was not Javier Mascherano's strong suit in year 1. You kind of have log jams at some different positions that the coach is going to have to sort of manage well, and that is part of his job. And I think the expectation should be that he's good at it this year, and if not, we'll have to talk about it. But I guess if you have a coach that's good at rotating, you just want as many good players as you can. And the only reason we're even having this conversation is because we didn't feel like that from Mascherano. But he's year 2. He's an MLS champion. Maybe he feels more unlocked to try some different things this year. So it is very interesting to see how it's all going to play out.
I think the good times are ahead of us. Let's just say that. There's no dearth of talent on this roster. And you know what? Stack us up, man. Stack us up with more talent. That's what we need.
Did this change your opinion on Suarez and his season? Or
I think so.
Because it's dramatically changed my opinion on what Suarez is going to
I think it's no. I was always of the opinion that Inter Miami is going to play that dynamic football that we saw in the last 4 games in the playoffs without Suarez on the pitch, and then Suarez is going to play in like the MLS and the off games that we need. Now it sort of confirms that Inter Miami is going to go for a Suarez-less team in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. I'm just a little worried that Suarez is not going to get the minutes and is going to throw a hissy fit when that happens. But I don't think it fundamentally changed how Suarez should fit into this team in my mind. How will he fit into this team is a different question, but I think it just cements in my mind that Suarez is no longer a starting option for Javier Mascherano.
I think that's the difference for me, is that now he's no longer a starting option. I don't think you can play him. And the other thing is I don't think he can come off the bench for 30 minutes. I don't think he's going to be a good bench player in terms of like what he actually does. I don't mean that from a personality perspective. I don't think he's the type of guy that comes off cold and just impacts games. And so, like, are we looking at a 400-minute season for Luis Suarez?
Nah, it's going to be more than that, man. It's not going to be as much as Alan Abondo. Suarez is going to get his moments. He will. And for all you know, he might actually end up scoring goals again. Like, he did not score goals last season. He still scored goals.
Okay. Can I flip it really crazy on you? And okay, just because I have to keep my own brand here. Let's say there's 10% chance that Suarez actually reverts to who he was in 2024 as a player.
Don't get me started, man. I know where you're going with this.
That would be better than what Germán Berterame is going to give us.
I don't know. I think you're equating different variables here. That team was different. The way it played, the way it set up was different. You don't know how Berterame is going to fit into this team, and it's not straightforward to say it's going to be better than what Berterame gives us. I think it's going to be good for Inter Miami if you've got options between two strikers who are competing for minutes. It always is.
It's so weird though because it feels like it's not going to be that. In my head, it's going to be Berterame is the guy, and Suarez is barely going to play. That's what I'm thinking
Yeah,
is going to happen right now.
probably that's the likelihood.
Okay, it'll be
Because
interesting to see if it's any
if
different.
if Suarez comes into form, I just think that's going to be better for the team, right?
Yeah,
I
of
don't see
course,
that
of
as a
course.
problem in any way.
I'm not suggesting it's a problem. Okay, let's end on this. I think this dramatically changes expectations for 2026 because, as I mentioned earlier in the episode, they probably could have been better off waiting till the summer and getting a better DP with their third DP, and probably would have set themselves up better for the next 3 years. Probably, not guaranteed, probably. But going into this CONCACAF Champions Cup run, they are better off for buying Berterame. So now I think they have to win the CONCACAF Champions Cup.
I don't think that changed anything in the last 24 hours, did it? They had to win the CONCACAF Champions Cup regardless. That's the expectation from this.
In my brain, it changed. In my brain, it
Really?
did change. I think
For
that was
me,
the
it was
goal. That
always
was
the
the plan.
expectation.
But I think they had that expectation last. Like, I don't think going into 2025's CONCACAF Champions Cup, the expectations in my head were any different than what they were going into the 2026 CONCACAF Champions Cup yesterday. They had a very good team that was absolutely capable of going all the way last year, and I thought they had a very good team that was absolutely capable of going all the way this year, yesterday. Now that they're pulling this trigger, and I think sacrificing some of the future, at least some of the upside of the future, to have the best team they can have right now, I think that puts more pressure on them to win it this year.
Maybe. I think it gives us a better chance. It maybe changes the expectation a little bit, but I still think the expectation was always this season to win the CONCACAF Champions Cup. So in my mind, that's still the goal. Maybe it positions ourselves a little bit better. So now if we lose, that's going to be a bit bigger disappointment than if we had lost without having like that. Yeah. I think the expectation was always the same. It's just now the level has sort of gone up a notch. And if we lose the CONCACAF Champions Cup now, depending on the manner in which we lose, is going to be a little bit more disappointing if that happens, God forbid.
Yeah, I guess that's maybe how I really should be thinking about this. I'm not sure my brain feels any differently than it did last year, but my heart now is emotionally invested in not just that they are one of the best teams and have a good chance to win, that they have to win.
Yeah.
And now I'm a little afraid of that. But also, it makes it more exciting. And I do think
never be afraid of failure, my friend. Always be glad for success. And hopefully it'll come our way.
Have they dramatically changed their likelihood of winning?
Not dramatically. They've, I think, gone up a degree. But I still think this team could have, would have, should have won the CONCACAF Champions Cup without Berterame. If you'd got someone like Lewandowski, then I would have maybe said yes. But I think with Berterame, you give yourself a better opportunity, some depth, some less excuses to go through. But I don't think it dramatically alters our ability to win the CONCACAF Champions Cup.
I guess let me rephrase that. I think yesterday, Inter Miami was one of the 5 most likely teams to win the MLS Cup in that first tier of quality and likelihood. And after this, I'm not sure it makes them in a tier by themselves.
No.
In terms of likelihood, I still think they're one of the 5 most likely teams in a certain tier.
Yep.
Okay.
I agree with that.
We're on the same page. Anything else you want to talk about? I mean, it's kind of a...
No, I think there's still a lot of quotes that we need to talk about from Jorge Mas and his interview, but I know we're going to dedicate an entire episode to that. A few interesting things coming out of it. But other than that, Inter Miami just keeps doing business as usual, man. I'm pretty sure they're going to sign like 15 new players by the end of the season. By the end of the transfer window.
Kareem gives a super sticker, and I just want to thank you for that. He says Allende has to start. As far as finishing out this roster, we talked about you want to add a defensive piece, which I think is a luxury, not a necessity. in terms of numbers. Like you would only want to sign a center back if it's a starting center back. You don't want to add a piece just to add a piece. I think either in the midfield or in the attack they need one more piece, but as a depth option. Could I finagle a way for us to buy another U22? I could, but I don't think it's particularly likely. So I think when you're looking at, that kid from Bolivia or anyone else really, Baltasar probably also, this I think makes that very difficult to do. So I think we're looking at a midfielder or forward or swinger, and and then maybe go out and see if you can get an extra starting level defender, and then that's it for this season. And a third goalkeeper at some point, but that's it, man.
Yeah, I think we get a swinger, and that's going to be it for our window. But still, more business to come.
Okay, guys, we will end it there. But I just want to check Twitter because so much has happened today. I don't want to make sure if there's anything crazy. We've spotted it. They did open camp today, so they're training. You can go find pictures on the internet of them in their new training outfits. David Ajala, a little bit shorter than I was expecting. There's a picture of him next to Noah Allen and Maxi Falcone and someone else that's also not tall, Matteo Silvetti, and he's the shortest one. So that was interesting.
He doesn't need to be tall. He just needs to be grounded and ready to put in tackles.
Absolutely. I didn't mean that as a negative, but I guess this is the day where you kind of find out some things. He's going to wear number 22. But other than that, guys, I think that's it. We'll be back in the next couple of days to break down everything that's happened, and maybe we'll have a final trigger on this one. But this is kind of huge news, so we have to go live.
Yep.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Since our first viewer, sharing this with you all has been the very best part. So from the beginning until the end, thank you for being a part of this and have a wonderful day.